folks, I'm Ron Brown. Welcome to my shop. Today I'd like to talk to you about grinding a brand new bowl gouge. When you bring it home, you take it out of the box and it doesn't have the grind on it that you want on it. There is a method that I use and I want to share that with you today. It doesn't really matter where you get the gouge. For my particular taste, none of them are the shape that I want. Doesn't matter whether it's a Robert Sorby, some of the signature gouges from Mike Mahoney, Jimmy Glues, etc. Those will be okay. Some of Doug Thompson's tools are fine, but all the rest of them need to be reshaped to suit me. There's a very specific process that I use, and I want to share that with you today. So join me here at the grinder and I'll tell you what it is. Step number one is the nose angle. And we talk about the nose angle, we're talking about the angle right on the point right in the middle of the tool. This tool is already ground the way I like it, but this one certainly is not. So when we talk about degrees, what we're talking about are degrees off of parallel with the floor. This would be 0 degrees, this would be 90 degrees. So when we talk about 45, we're talking about here. When we talk about 50 degrees off, we're talking about a little further down. 45 degrees is safe for just about everything. Most of the bowl gouges that I grind are ground from 55 to 60 degrees. So step number one is we have to grind the nose angle. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to freehand grind using the platform, the nose angle, and I'm going to check the nose angle with a variety of angle checkers. I sell most of these, you can find them on the web, but get some sort of angle checker. I think this one is $7 or $8 and this one's about 12 or 15, I don't really remember. So we're going to grind the nose . So we're going to take this tool and grind a nose angle, and for the first one we're going to use 45 degrees. Coincidentally, I have something called a quad gauge here that's going to set the angle at 45 degrees. So I happen to know that this platform is going to give me 45 degrees. So when I check our first gouge, we're going to do two. When I check the first gouge with the angle checker, I can see that it's 40 degrees. So we're not terribly far off, but it's a little too flat. We want to come down to 45. So I'm just going to grind a flat right on the nose. So this is what I got when I ground that flat at 45 degrees. I got a flat spot on the nose. So now that we have our nose angle, the next thing we have to do is shape the wings. The easiest way I found to do that is to turn the gouge upside down with the flute actually facing the floor and then grind the particular shape that I'm after. That almost gives me a template, something to grind to. Here's what I need. So this is just exactly the shape that I wanted. You see the flats and stuff up here? That's okay. That's going to give me a template to grind to in the next step. So I already know the shape of the grind that I want, and I know from experience pretty much how to set up the jig. So we're going to use a Varigrind 1, and I know on a Varigrind 1 that for this particular grind, which is something I use for a lot of dry wood and a lot of smaller stuff, I know that I'm going to set the leg angle in the second notch, which is 23 degrees off of parallel with the floor. So I know that. I also know that the projection is going to be 2 inches because that's a standard number that 95% of all of America uses. Some people use 1 3/4. We're going to use 2. Now for 2 inches, you need a gauge block to make sure that you set that at 2 inches. And in this particular case, my gauge block is right there. I also have a gauge block built into the sharpening system, and a lot of people just take a board and drill a hole in it, but 2 inches is what we're after. So the third variable is the leg projection. And what we have to do here is adjust this so that we're making full contact on the wheel. So the tried and true method is the Sharpie. Take your Sharpie, mark the X, and then spin the wheel by hand to see that you're making full contact. So we've used the Sharpie. We'll assemble our wheel, we'll move it by hand, and we'll see that we're not exactly where we need to be, so I'll make an adjustment. And when I make full contact, I'll show you how to grind it. So the next step is then to go ahead and put a cutting edge on the shape that we have. We're going to grind to the inside line on the coarse wheel. So the next thing we're going to do is grind to the profile. We're going to grind to the inside edge. We'll grind one wing, cooling it as we go so we don't overheat the tool. Then we'll grind the other wing, and when we get the shape that we want and we've got a rough cutting edge, we're going to go to the other side of the grinder and put a finishing edge on it. So this is the result of our rough grind, and you actually saw this in real time. It doesn't take a lot. So now we're going to go over to the other wheel, the fine wheel, and put a finish cutting. So there are two methods to set this leg up. Since I have these little gauge blocks, little setup blocks, I'm going to use those because it takes about 1/10 of the time. Otherwise, you put it in, use the Sharpie, and do it that way. So, 2 inches, just like we were setting things up on the other side. That something didn't feel quite right. Okay, there's our 2-inch projection. Our leg is set. We're at 23 degrees, and we're going to put a finish grind on this tool. That's exactly what we're looking for. So this is what the finished gouge looks like. Doing what we just did. Took 3, 4, 5 minutes, brand new, out of the box, ready to go. I'm going to put a fairly long grind on this. So I've taken my Sharpie and I'm going to turn the gouge upside down with the flutes down, and I'm going to grind about to the mark using that as my guide. As you can see, I've already ground my 60-degree flat on this end, so let's go to the grinder and get to work. So I'm using setup block number 1 here. Remember, if you don't have these setup blocks, then you're going to have to get out your Sharpie. Make sure you make full contact. Make sure this length is set exactly right here. I can do a shortcut because I've got the setup blocks. So here's what we're working with. I've got the flat, and when I ground the profile, I'm going to sharpen to that. Now obviously this won't cut until I put a cutting edge on it, so I'm going to be removing all the shiny metal you see here. I'm going to be removing that right up to the cutting edge. So this is what we need to grind off on both sides. So we have almost a cutting edge here. That certainly is the shape we want. If I wanted longer wings, I'd go ahead and pull them back. But for now, we're going to start with this. I don't want to overstate this because I know you've seen me use the setup blocks, but we're switching over here to the fine wheel, the 180 grit wheel. And if you've ever used that Sharpie setup method, that was it. We're dead on the money. So here's our tool. We got to go back now and actually put the final grind, put the cutting edge on here. There's my 2-inch gauge block. It's exactly 2 inches. And I don't have to check anything. I know it's right. We are absolutely good to go. This will throw shavings a mile. And that's all there is to it. So that's how I prepare brand new gouges, both spindle gouges and bowl gouges, when I bring them home and they're not the shape that I want. Brand new out of the package. The things that you absolutely need, whether you get mine or get them from somebody else, you need an angle gauge so you can check that nose angle and make sure it's what you want. You need a Varigrind 1 gouge holding fixture because it'll save a lot of money, it's a lot faster, and your tools will last a heck of a lot longer. Plus it's repeatable, and if you'll do it the way I showed you, you can come back to that same grind over and over and over. And sharpening a gouge will take you less than a minute if you use one of these jigs. The other thing you might want to think about is a gauge block, whether you make your own or whether you happen to pick up this one or one from somebody else. Get yourself a 2-inch gauge block. The other thing that you can only get from me are these setup blocks. I use these because I got tired of using the Sharpie. The Sharpie is not accurate. If you're out a half a degree here and a half a degree there, pretty soon you're so far out that the tool won't even cut, you won't even recognize it. These are cheap. They basically, you can't destroy them, and they just make life so much easier and so much more convenient and a lot happier. So anyway, that's how I do it. I hope that helped. I'm Ron Brown. Thanks for watching, and remember, wherever you go, there you are.